Okay, I'd like to call to order the March 22nd, 2022 special city council meeting. Please call the roll.
Garza,
Here.
Fast,
Here.
Bagwell,
Here.
Richardson,
Here.
Iris de Carvalho.
Here. Next item, please.
Consider Hutchinson Fire Department request for use of ARPA funds.
Okay, earlier in the day at our joint city council county commission meeting, we heard more information on the request from Chief Beer for equipment and gear to be purchased with ARPA funds as outlined in the letter at our last city council agenda meeting. Is there a discussion from the council on these purchases? And I would mention that action taken at the county commission earlier today indicated a desire to support this request at 50% up to $440,000.
I think there are two things we could address. The one is one of the county commissioners had some heartburn over the budget. And I think that's something that I just want to make sure that we're all cognizant of trying to make sure that money's being spent wisely, and I think Chief Beer's done a really good job of trying to address that. And the other item is, do we want to use ARPA funds for this, or do we have another financial mechanism to pay for this?
is that a question for staff?
I'm putting it out in the air for anyone to answer.
I gotcha.
It's in the ether.
If given the opportunity to weigh in on that, I would certainly urge you to consider using the ARPA funds, as it wouldn't have any negative impact or immediate impact to our other revenue-producing avenues, such as property tax and fund balances. Some of those ratios could be disrupted.
One question I got on the ARPA funds, we went to this meeting with all the residents, and we kind of bunched out where the money was, we haven't got to that point yet. I guess I'm answering my own question, who's getting what yet, so we haven't really got to that point yet on who we're giving it to, right?
That is true, and one way to maybe look at that is this is a pretty small amount of that overall money, so you still have a little wiggle room as to how
Okay.
you may want to consider.
I just want to know, we was planning on doing something for somebody, now we got to take it away from them, so. But we haven't had a meeting yet to decide where we're going to put it, who gets what.
That's true, or the process for how to
Okay.
put that together. That is coming up soon, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the conversation originally was that we should consider expending 50% of ARPA funds on city-related or staff-related direction, and the other 50% based on the community feedback.
Right.
But that conversation will happen April 5th. So, it's my understanding if we're having this conversation prior to the overall conversation of how best to allocate those funds or the process for which people would, apply for those funds, that this would need to come out of the 50% of the cities.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Are there other thoughts or questions before we open it up to comments from the audience?
I guess just to reiterate what you just spoke of the 50%, I think with the city manager being in agreement that what we're spending today would be portioned out of our 50% and not what's left over after today's is split by 50%.
Yeah, it's kind of been a philosophical
Yeah, it's a
discussion,
philosophical
but
question,
yeah,
yeah.
that it certainly falls well below the 50% threshold
Yeah.
of what that was modeled to be.
Yeah.
John, you said you had two questions. Was that just?
Oh, the first one is just really just kind of putting out there that it is important to us as a group that we're spending money wisely in regards to the equipment being purchased, and I think the Chief Beer has addressed that. That was kind of in a follow-up to Commissioner Hurst's comment this
Yeah.
morning,
So-
and to make sure he knows that we're not completely ignoring his concerns.
Yeah, so from what I gathered from that is Hearst priced the vehicle at $15,000 less than what Chief Beer is saying the cost of the vehicle is. So it's a $15,000 difference between what county commissioner found. I don't know if he found it online or where he found it. There's a $15,000 difference. But honestly, that information, did he get that information to you, Chief Beer, about where that source of the vehicle he found online was that was $15,000 cheaper?
Steve Beer, Hutchinson Fire Chief. I did talk to Commissioner Hurst after the meeting a little bit, and I want to say he found a vehicle in South Carolina, is where it was from. Don't quote me 100% on that, but I think that's where he found it from. But again, it's like buying anything else here. I'm not sure. He don't have our specs, and I asked him to, if he had any issues, I'd be happy to furnish our specs that we have. And so just like a little difference between when you buy a truck, you know, if you had an accessory, just like a bumper nozzle on the bumper of one of these pickup trucks is $12,000 to $15,000. So that could just be the difference right there. Now, if I would have thought we were $50,000 higher, yeah, that would have been different. But I think we're really close in that ballpark. We will follow all city purchasing policies, go out to bid on everything to make sure we get the best price on everything. And so, Angela, we'll be working with her if this is approved on everything. The biggest thing is trust. And, trust is one of our core values at HFD. And I expect when I put my numbers together that they're spot on. I expect that you trust me when I put a budget together or whatever I present to you as a fire chief. I want to be as transparent as I possibly can to each and every one of you. We have nothing to hide within our organization. And I'm proud of being that transparency, and I'm proud of being a data-driven organization by the numbers. And so this $210,000 too, he brought up another example with the turnout gear, buying it cheaper. Yeah, you can buy a set of turnout gear for $600. That's more like the economy model. And I use the analogy of actually my division chief, we were talking about it today, brought this up, Chief Hanen. And he's like, as a regular weekend carpenter, I can go to home or to Harbor Freight and buy a tool and gets me by for a couple days. But if I'm that skilled craftsman that's cutting crown molding every day, I probably want a Milwaukee or DeWalt type of tool. And that's what we're really dealing with here. And getting back to the turnout gear, was this turnout gear is like the economy model for $600 a set. And so that gear would last our department about 3 years. The stuff that we buy is 7.5% ounce per square inch of fabric, what they call the weight of it. And this stuff lasts us 10 years. And so instead of every 3 years coming back for a request for turnout gear, we make ours last 10 years. In addition to that, understand too that our gear compared to a lot of the rural districts, District 7 that runs, a handful of calls a year compared to our 6,500 calls a year, we're beating our stuff up a lot more in comparison to other places. So when you truly talk apples to apples, I think my numbers are spot on. And if there's cost savings during the bidding process, definitely be saving money.
Thank you very much.
If you might stand up for just a second, I'm sorry, sir. It was mentioned today in the county commission meeting that these trucks are not, in addition to the fleet, they're replacements in the fleet. It's not going to add to the overall maintenance fund.
Correct.
And it's also, I think we have plans for a 2023 truck and a 2024 truck.
I know for sure in 23, I have to look, I don't have MRF right in front of me right now. They will be removed from the MRF.
So we're not adding to the fleet, adding to the overall long-term costs that we wouldn't already have. It's basically replacements. And buying the trucks now may be a lot cheaper than trying to get it in a year, on top of the situation in regards of having it on hand for the next season.
I can tell you just in the last 2 years, the chassis has gone up $25,000.
I had a question to bounce off that as well. How old is the equipment that you're replacing?
I believe it's a 96 and a 98.
So would it be safe to say that we probably do a lot of maintenance on these to keep these running?
You bet. That's fair to say. And these were old squads when the city ran squads back in the day here that were converted into wildland trucks. And so this will be the last of it. And after we get this program up here, really our maintenance or our wildland program should be self-sustained out of our wildland deployment account. And that's the ultimate goal of this whole entire thing, is to run our entire wildland program off of the money that we basically bring in each year on our wildland deployments out west.
All right, thank you.
These are a 20-year asset.
20-year assets where we're getting our brush trucks, our Type 6s right now.
Further questions or comments from the council?
I suppose I'm excited that it might be reducing our budget coming up by an amount. I realizing that we're just using other money to do that, but seems like a legitimate need, and I mean, I trust you're doing your due diligence.
I think the bigger thing here, as your fire chief here in town here, it's truly sends a message to my men and women. My men and women that are on the front lines with some of this equipment that, I almost lost 2 firefighters here last week, and it really bothered me. It has bothered me immensely, and I don't think anybody here realized how close we had some of our calls with a truck that was burned up. And, it just, I got to do everything as your chief to make sure my men and women on the front lines battling these things on a daily basis are safe. I say a prayer every night that I don't have to be the person knocking on somebody's door at 2 o'clock in the morning saying we lost a firefighter. And I take that to heart. And my men and women deserve to have the best protective gear to do the jobs that they do. Our firefighters make $14.48 an hour. None of my firefighters do this to get rich. And it's my job to make sure that they go home the next day and make sure they have the equipment and the tools to do their job. And I appreciate the support that you have given our organization. And I think this truly sends a strong message to my organization. My president is right here of Local 179. And it sends a strong message to my men and women that they know that you have their backs and you're supporting them when they're on the front lines battling these situations.
Chief, I'm glad you brought that up, that, the need for our men and women to have this gear. But one thing I want to make clear to the public and to the IAFF is this is the first time we're hearing about this intense need for this gear. So, there's been a lot of rhetoric about how we've sent people into unsafe situations without the equipment they needed. That was never our intent. This is the first we're hearing that we needed this equipment. And I think that's important for the public to hear, that the council is not uncommitted to providing our fire department with what they need. We just need to know what they need. And I think it's been evident that if you bring those needs to us, we're gonna step up. So I did just want to mention that. I wouldn't want our firefighters to think that we've failed to provide them what they needed when, obviously we're not in a position to know that until we're told. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to comment on this request? I see some people. Sure.
Hey, I'm Jackson Swear, 103 West 22nd. Just wanted to stand up briefly in support of Chief Beer and also of the collaboration between the city and the county. I think that that's a great sign, something that we should try to do more of, to continue to work together, to find ways to share costs and try to do the right thing for our taxpayers. I think it's absolutely critical that Chief gets the resources that he needs. The idea that we've got a truck that was burned up and 2 more that are 20 plus years old that need to be replaced. And the idea that we should replace them all now because it's going to be cheaper in the long run and it's safer if we can get everybody on the same equipment. That all makes a lot of sense to me. And definitely fully support getting the funding for this. I think whether you take it out of kind of the city's half of the ARPA funds, if you will, you find another source of funding for it, whatever you decide to do, the important thing is to get it done and get the fire department what they need. I would just ask the city council to press a little bit on what some of the options are for different funding sources. One thing I've heard today is that it seems like this is going to decrease our future MRF budget. So it seems like there should be some other ways to get this paid for, but if there truly aren't and you need to use some of those ARPA funds to get this done, then I think it seems like it's a big enough need. But I would note that this isn't something that came out of the public engagement related to this, and while it's certainly within the scope of what you could spend the ARPA funds are with the way the Fed has written the rules, you can basically spend it on any government service. I don't know that it fits in the spirit and intent of the ARPA funds to address issues that are related to COVID. But I just standing here today, I want to make it very clear that if there isn't another way to do it, you need to make sure the fire department gets the funds. So that's my contribution to the conversation. Any questions for me today?
Appreciate your comments and agree wholeheartedly. I want to see this funded. I think the rest of the council does too. Would be interesting to understand better the different mechanisms we have in the budget. I don't know if you could speak to that, Angela.
I can't think of any place where we just have 440,000 just sitting there. We did end the 2021 year with more in our general fund than anticipated. So I think I would have to think about more where we could maybe supplement this. I don't think we could pay for the whole thing out of any money that we have.
Okay, thank you.
If we do end up using ARPA funds for this, I want us to remember when we get through with the process in the future on how we're handling the ARPA funds, if we have an opportunity that comes up that could have been spent on, ARPA funds could have been spent on, and we have economic development funds or something else that can be used, I think we should remember how this happened. And I'm not saying it's good or bad, I'm just, the intent of the ARPA funds, the guidelines have loosened up. It's can be used for whatever we want almost basically now. But I do want to be cognizant of what the community involvement was to get improvements to our community for these funds that are difficult to do normally.
For sure. It's important to remember that every expenditure is a trade-off. More money for this department means less for the police department, parks, public works, etc. So just as long as everyone's aware of that, factors that into their decision making. I am looking forward to seeing a reduction in MRF and CIP requests from the fire department in relation to this item. If
That was the point of my comments.
I don't want to be so gullible to think it's going to make the budget season any easier.
Oh, that would be a stretch, but
Okay.
Okay, further comments, questions, or a motion on this item?
Captain Troy Mueller, Hutchinson Fire Department, also the union president for Local 179. Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to address what you had said earlier about the need for the equipment and all at once hearing about it. On behalf of the members of Local 179, we at all do not feel like we are unsupported by you as a council or by Chief Beer. The need for the gear, we started when we merged with the county in 2000, started running outside of the city into the county and started fighting wildland fires. We were still fighting wildland fires in the same gear that we go into structure fires with. Gotcha. And we didn't have anything for wildland. In a couple of years, we actually got brush coats, lighter weight coats, but we were still wearing our structural firefighting pants. And we moved up from that to where we actually had we had wildland pants and wildland coats and boots. And the first set that we got was awarded on a 50-50 grant from the Kansas Forest Service. And that was a huge step forward for us in being able to fight wildland fires and not having to wear the cumbersome heavy gear that we wear to go into structure fires with, because the fatigue level when you're out on those, it just increases greatly when you wear that heavy gear. We have been replacing that as it needed to be replaced, but a lot of that gear it's over 10 years old. And the number of wildland fires that we go on annually have been increasing every year. We go on more and more grass fires every year. As more people move out into the urban interface, the threat increases to our citizens because they're in that area, and so you have that greater threat of grass fires now in a wildland urban interface. And just the changing of, whether you want to call it climate change or however you want to word it, we have longer growing seasons. We have less and less area that was usually traditionally grazed off as pasture land that's now not. So you have more growth. You have they talked about at the council or at the commission meeting the cedars, the invasion of the invasive species of the cedars, and so we have more potential for the fires to get bigger and to have more of them every year. And so I guess I just want to express my appreciation, first of all, to Chief Beer and to you guys for considering this and taking it on and doing it so quickly, realizing the need and getting us the equipment that we need to be able to do our job safely, to make sure that all of us go home at the end of the shift. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your comments and for your leadership. Is there a motion on this item?
Motion to approve a request by the Hutchinson Fire Department to purchase equipment and gear with ARPA funds as outlined in the March 9, 2020 letter from the Fire Chief Stephen R. Beer.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Garza,
Yes.
Fast,
Yes.
Bagwell,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Irish de Carvalho.
Yes. Next item, please. Is there a motion for adjournment?
Were we going to discuss
We can discuss whatever you want, Greg.
well, I would like to discuss getting these contracts done with the county. We alluded to that earlier today, that we might look into that this evening. What say you?
I will tell you this, council. City staff will fulfill your commitment you made to the county today. I promise you that. And I was already at work on it as soon as we were out of the county chambers.
I heard you were. Thank you.
Any other discussion? No?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, is there a second?
I second that.
Please call the roll.
Garza,
Yes.
Fast,
Yes.
Bagwell,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Irish de Carvalho.
Yes, we'll see everyone back on April 5th for our regularly scheduled meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.